All right, folks, we're gonna move towards getting started here. We can wrap up conversations and things. I know a couple of the sessions went a little long in the last session, and there's a lot of good hallway conversation. So I gave everyone a couple extra minutes. Hello. Hello all. I'm Alexis McKittrick. I'm a program manager in DOE's Geothermal Technologies Office. I am very excited to be here to present to you all at 4 p.m. at the end of the day about federal programs. And look at you all being here at 4 p.m. to talk about federal programs. I really appreciate everybody. I know it's been a long day. Who is feeling like their brain is full at this point in the day? Pretty full? Okay, like 50. Again, good on you, folks who have a little bit of brain space left. So I'm going to talk a bit about how DOE in particular is pumped up about geothermal heat pumps. Oh, that one's working? I'm okay. I'm going to walk. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, Matt. Okay, good. That worked. So as I mentioned, I'm a program manager in DOE's Geothermal Technologies Office. For context, because Department of Energy is a very large federal government organization that sits within the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. So think about all the other renewable technologies focused offices like wind energy, solar, water power. Those are all sister offices that kind of sit within the same part of the Department of Energy that the Geothermal Technologies Office does. We also interact a lot with other more energy efficiency focused offices like the Industrial Efficiency Decarbonization Office and the Building Technologies Office in particular, and I'll talk about that as we go through, as well as interacting with a number of other parts of DOE. So just a really quick kind of high level why we're so excited about geothermal heat pumps. We've seen a lot of movement in this space from DOE within the last couple of years. I'll talk a little bit about the GHP impacts report, which a lot of folks in this room I think have read, but those who are new to the space, I know we have a lot of newer folks to the industry at today's conference, I'll talk a bit about that really exciting report about the potential of geothermal heat pumps and not only decarb impacts, but impacts on the overall grid for GHP deployment. I'll talk a lot about the different funding opportunities, not only that exist currently within DOE, but also the projects that we're already actively funding. We also have support for heat pump manufacturing. For those familiar with the bipartisan infrastructure law, there was several $100 million associated with that, with the bill provisions that was focused on heat pumps within the Defense Production Act. And that ended up getting applied through two different funding opportunities in the last few years and several awards to major geothermal heat pump manufacturers in several locations. So that was an exciting next step in making sure that we have all of the geothermal heat pumps that we're going to need, hopefully to meet what we are all in this room envisioning is a much higher demand going forward. Tax incentives, I know we've heard from a lot of different speakers about tax incentives here. I will cover them relatively quickly, but hopefully to give a good primer for anyone who needs it. And then obviously as part of this great upsurgence of interest in geothermal heating and cooling and thermal energy networks, we are also working to create some really great resources for folks who are looking to understand the space more, who are looking to partner with others, with peers, and I'll also talk about a few exciting new initiatives that we have in that space. All right, but first just a tiny bit, if you'll indulge me, about the Geothermal Technologies Office. So again, we are a tech office, so we're really focused around research, development, and demonstration activities. So most of our funding is sent out through competitive funding announcements that then folks apply for that are on specific geothermal technology topics. And then we make selections and provide awards. We also do a lot of work with our national labs, and you'll see a few examples as I go through the presentation, directly on everything from helping with technical reports and research to supporting some of our projects to modeling and analysis of geothermal heating and cooling as well as geothermal power. So the two two programs that you see highlighted in yellow, our low temperature and co-produced resources program and our data modeling and analysis program. I have highlighted because they are the two that are represented here at NY-GEO, and they're also the two that I would say do the most work focused on geothermal heating and cooling technologies. I don't think, looking around, we actually have anyone else from DOE in the room right now, but I'm going to give them quick shout-outs to make sure that you meet our folks who are at NY-GEO. So we have Jen Livermore from our data modeling and analysis team, who folks went to the GHP value session earlier today. She was on that panel. And then from the low temperature and co-produced resources team, we have Arlene Anderson, who is a longtime NY-GEO attendee, and David Wong, who just presented on the TENS panel in the last session, and also is a newer member at a low temp who started in June of this year. So please say hi to Arlene, David, and Jen, and introduce yourselves if you all haven't met them already. Where I fit into this picture is I manage our low temperature and co-produced resources group, which is really where geothermal heat pumps, TENS technology, community scale district heating and cooling systems, networked geothermal, pick your terminology for this wonderful set of applications that we're talking about at NY-GEO. All of those things fall within the low temperature and co-produced resources group, in addition to a portfolio on reservoir thermal energy storage, which is also, again, relevant to this audience. I also manage our hydrothermal resources group. Interestingly enough, the hydrothermal and the enhanced geothermal systems are our two power-focused groups. If anyone happens to be interested in geothermal power and somehow walked into a geothermal heating and cooling conference, feel free to come see me after. I'm happy to talk about geothermal power production as well. All right. Keep going. All right, so let's start talking about the GHP impacts analysis. And here I think I will switch microphones. We'll see how that goes. This is hard because I'm a walker. You guys still hear me? Everyone still got me? All right, good job. Okay, so a GHP impacts analysis. So this was published last December. We actually debuted it at the IGSPA conference from last December of 2023. So it was led by Oak Ridge National Laboratory and National Renewable Energy Lab. And I don't know if do we have Matt Mitchell in the room? Matt Mitchell, raise your hand. If you guys have questions about this, Matt is one of the lead researchers on this particular study. Really, this was our thought process here was we need a report and an analysis set that really helps everyone understand the impact that GHPs can have if deployed in a much larger amount than they are right now. We know that they're underrepresented compared to other decarbonization technologies, but what if they weren't? What if we could make a mass deployment between now and 2050 of geothermal heat pumps to all the single building systems that they could be applied to, that could be retrofitted with GHPs? What would that look like? And one thing I do want to mention, because I know we're very focused on thermal energy networks in the conference today, is that this is single building systems. I'm looking at both residential and commercial systems that are GHPs for individual buildings. And oh, no, that's not what I'm allowed to do. Sorry, I used the wrong thing. And the takeaways that we found from this analysis that Oak Ridge and NREL found were absolutely jaw-dropping. Not only would this mass deployment of GHPs result in a 7 gigaton carbon emissions reduction, kind of jumping to the bottom, which, let's be honest, we know, right? We knew these are very strong decarb technologies. 7 gigatons is a really, really big number, though. So that was exciting to see that. But what we didn't expect, and a theme that I've heard throughout day one of this conference, is the impacts that GHPs can have on the grid if they are deployed at this massive level. We estimated that this GHP mass deployment would eliminate over 43,000 miles of new interregional transmission infrastructure. If anyone's familiar with the SunZia pipeline project, or transmission project, excuse me, it is equivalent to 44 SunZia projects. And then reducing our nationwide generation capacity that would be required in the future by over 400 gigawatts. Over 400 gigawatts. And that delta, when you're thinking about our decarbonized future, the grid that we're all trying to build together, the clean grid that we're all trying to build together, that difference is, I mean, it's phenomenal. It's the investment and the amount of funding and infrastructure investment that will reduce while bringing on decarbonized heating and cooling for these buildings would be amazing. So now we know what the size of the prize looks like for GHPs, and it's gigantic. So what's next in this space? We do have phase 2 work that is underway. It's looking at a couple of different specific areas. Excuse me. I'll let you read the slide while I drink some tea. Ooh. One, we're looking at how GHP deployment and this mass deployment scenarios and increased GHP adoption can be tied to and how they would support Justice 40, which is a goal of the current administration to make sure that 40% of the funding and resources from federal government agencies goes to traditionally underrepresented, marginalized groups and communities. It's also looking at how GHPs can accelerate the clean energy workforce transition. I know we talked a lot about workforce today in this conference as well. So very excited to see how those giant deployment numbers, right, might tie to an increase in jobs in the GHP industry, both in HVAC and drilling. And also, we're looking at the path forward for natural gas distribution utilities towards a decarbonized future. And what that means, that's essentially code for we're moving into that utility 10 space with this next phase of analysis and trying to understand if we're taking into account that mechanism as a deployment opportunity for the future, how does this shift and what does that look like? So we're excited for that next phase of work. And then I also wanted to mention that we are very close, super close to putting out a Pathways to Commercial Liftoff report for the geothermal heating and cooling. For those who are kind of nodding their head when I mentioned geothermal power, probably saw that the Pathways to Commercial Liftoff reports, which is a series, put out a geothermal power report about 6 months ago. And what Pathways to Commercial Liftoff is it's essentially taking a technology space, and this has been everything from kind of hydrogen to industrial decarb to virtual power plants to geothermal, taking a given technology space and establishing kind of a common baseline and understanding not only of the current status, but also what it would take for there to be significant market adoption and significant deployment basically within the next decade, so kind of by 2035-ish. And so we really appreciate kind of the folks at this conference that have been part of this report and this development. I know some folks participated in engagements and interviews. Some folks participated by providing data to this group. And so if you participated, thank you. If this is new to you, please keep an eye out for it. We're looking to hopefully release this at Deploy 24, which is the first week in December. And it's going to be a really exciting report that absolutely will tackle and look at the 10 space specifically, and how can we think about what commercial deployment and commercial liftoff in the utilities 10 space looks like in the next decade. I mentioned that I would talk a little bit about tax credits, GHPs and the Inflation Reduction Act. I will cover this relatively quickly. I would encourage anybody who is interested in tax credits to come to the IRA session tomorrow, which looks really exciting and fantastic. So in the Inflation Reduction Act, GHPs do have this residential owner tax credit of 30% of GHP costs through 2032. That is 30% with no cap. So while other technologies do have a cap at a couple $1,000s or 30%, GHPs are just a flat 30%, which I know has helped a lot in the market thus far. And certainly would appreciate a continued dialogue with you all and the conference on any feedback kind of on how that's going. And then there's also some commercial focus tax credits as well. The ITC, I know the investment tax credit, there's been a lot of questions, particularly on split ownership, but I did want to highlight that assuming folks are able to put in for the investment tax credit, that it does need to be for renewable energy projects beginning construction January 1st of 2025. And then, again, just that base investment tax credit for geothermal projects is 6% for the first 10 years and then kind of scales from there. Won't get into the nitty-gritty details. And then, of course, there are bonuses. So the last bullet really is describing things about like apprenticeship requirements and prevailing wage that can add kind of bonus credits on top of the ITC for commercial projects. And I'm really excited to say that for those who've been asking for a resource of GHP projects at different scales, we just published one, or should I say, NREL just published one. And we have Xiaofei Pu, oh, there you go. Xiaofei is here in the audience from NREL. She was the lead researcher on this. So if you all look at these studies and have any questions, feel free to reach out to her. This is, as the pens show, great examples, fleshed out examples of GHP projects at different scales all across the country. Different system types, different size systems, different end uses, and obviously different climate zones, as you all can see from the map. There's a lot of really great real-world examples in there. And we publish this in particular because we get a lot of feedback from stakeholders on, I have this specific X type of system, and I see examples on individual homes, and I see examples for college campuses, but I don't see what I'm looking for. And so this, variety of different GHP examples, which we kind of are calling the GHP yearbook, is kind of the nice code name for it, because we kind of go through and you see for each different system exactly what the specifications are, and they have contact information for the folks who developed it. If there is additional questions, you can reach out to those folks. So allowing those resources. And if there is anyone in the room that helped out with one of these case studies, a big thank you to you all as well. All right, next, our GHP collegiate competition that in this case is focused on GHP workforce. So we actually just had our annual geothermal collegiate competition applications close. Very excited to report that we have 33 teams from 26 different universities participating from across the US. This, for the last couple of years, has been not only geothermal kind of real-world design and system design that these students are doing, but it has been focused on geothermal heating and cooling and GHP systems for the last, or direct use systems for the last couple of years. So this has been a big boon, I think, in the geothermal heating and cooling space at really getting folks at the collegiate level engaged in this really exciting renewable energy. And I know that the industry is looking to kind of build up the early career workforce. So again, would really encourage folks, if anyone's interested in being a judge for the collegiate competition, please check in with me after, or go to the website and sign up to be a merit reviewer or judge, and we will take that offer. All right, so now on to our next, and I would say probably the latest breaking activity that I'm going to talk about. And if anybody was in David Wong's session from right before this, he did talk a little bit about it, and I should say David is the lead on what I'm about to talk about, so feel free to find myself or David throughout the conference. We are launching a brand new prize that's focused on workforce development in the GHP space. So we're calling this the PATHS Prize, Partnerships to Accelerate Training and Hiring in Geothermal Heat Pumps. And it is going to be a 3-phase prize that is really focused on developing train-to-hire programs at a variety of different entities. So we're looking for folks, if you are thinking about creating a drilling workforce initiative at your organization. If you're looking to do HVAC initiative, if you're looking to do a GHP specific initiative, as long as it's tied to the GHP workforce, that is what we're looking to develop. And we are looking to develop sustainable pathways towards a future workforce. So while we absolutely want more folks to get certified now, we also are trying to create and enable with this prize the opportunity for entities to set up a program that they can repeat over time after they receive the prize funding. So for those who aren't familiar with prizes, they are less, I will just say overall, less onerous than like FOA's, funding opportunity announcements, and those larger programs. They are ones that you actually go on and you will follow the prize, and I'll show that on the next slide, and submit as a team, and usually they increase in a kind of level of effort. So you might write a concept paper in the first phase and then do, further development of that paper into a larger idea in the second phase, and then move into implementation in the third phase. And some are longer, right, but we're envisioning this right now, at least as a three-phase prize. This is a soft launch, so we do not have all of the detailed rules for this prize put together yet, but we want to get everyone at NY-GEO aware that we're about to launch this at the kind of end of November, beginning of December, and encourage you to go on the HeroX website, so that's HeroX.com. Look for the GHP Past Prize and just give us a follow, kind of like, you follow folks on LinkedIn or social media. Give us a follow and you all will get updates on when this prize officially launches. Feel free to start putting together your team. And obviously, if you have any broader questions, David or I are here to talk about that. But we're really, really excited about this initiative. Again, we've heard a lot from the industry that additional workforce development is needed and more programs are needed, and so we're looking to respond to that. All right, who in the room has heard about community geothermal? Just help me out a little bit. Who isn't? Okay, some people, about half the room. Sorry, so I've given a lot of talks in the last 2 years about community geothermal, just trying to get a sense for how many folks had heard this field before. So we are really excited about this portfolio of projects. This is the brainchild of Arlene Anderson, who again is here at the conference. She's our funding opportunity manager. And this went out, I think in 2022, the very beginning of fiscal year 2022. And the idea behind this was we saw the TENS space emerging. It wasn't even called TENS even a couple of years ago. We saw a lot of installations on college campuses, but a lot less in community systems. And so not only were we looking to kind of support that deployment and see the innovations grow into a community scale space, we also wanted to make sure communities were heavily involved from the beginning. So you see that a community voice was required as part of this kind of four-tiered or four-partner application package. And we also wanted to make sure we were reaching communities that, again, had been traditionally underrepresented in funding opportunities, had not had the resources and the access to renewable energy that perhaps other communities had had. And we're also looking at funding tribal nations and systems on tribal lands as well. So environmental justice was really important for us, thinking about things like energy and fuel poverty from from fossil fuel use. Natural gas as well as oil was really important to us. And also you see that there's a workforce component on here. Again, having these teams develop a local workforce was also really important to us. And then of course we have what I would call kind of your traditional partners on these applications, which is the folks that are going to do your analysis and design, and then folks who would actually deploy these community systems. And of course, hopefully at the end of this, we have a number of systems that we can provide all of the data and information publicly so that, again, all of the industry has these examples to work from for community scale systems. And so this is a quick snapshot of the initial awards that we made in summer of last year, so about 15 months ago. kind of spring to summer of last year. We selected 11 different communities to go into the initial design phase of our community geothermal systems. And here you can see we actually divided up, we had subtopics within our funding opportunity focused on urban suburban systems, rural systems, and then remote systems. And we were able to make awards in all three of those categories. So again, trying to showcase that geothermal community scale systems, network geothermal systems can work in a lot of different climate zones and a lot of different spaces and places within the US. All of these projects, and I'll kind of click through different ones as we go here, but all of these projects are about to go, or are in the process of going through a down select. So I mentioned that these were all the phase 1 projects, and we are in the process of going through a down select into phase 2, where a subset of these 11 communities will move forward into the second phase, which is to ultimately deploy their systems. So everyone has a design completed at this point, and then after the down select, we'll announce some of the projects will move forward into the deployment stage. And here again, you see Ann Arbor, Michigan, Chicago, Illinois, and Duluth, Minnesota, kind of got a Midwest, I don't know, lakes kind of space going on there. Framingham, Massachusetts, so this is the second phase of the Framingham project is what is covered in this community geo, just to distinguish it from what I'm sure a lot of folks attended this morning on the overview of the currently operating Framingham loop. And then New York City project, Wallingford, Connecticut. And then here's our rural and remote community projects under community geothermal. So Carbondale, Colorado, Middlebury, Vermont, Seward, Alaska, and Shawnee, Oklahoma. And then the one remote islanded project that we had is in Nome, Alaska. So again, a lot of really exciting applications. I was not going to go through each of these in detail, just given time, and I'm what's standing in between y'all and the happy hour. But I will say that each of these is really great because not only are they in distinct areas of the country, they all look a little different, right? Like you see, Nome is really looking at direct use applications. We have several hybrid solar geothermal systems. One, I thought it was Seward, that was using, it's not on here, but Seward, I believe, is using kind of a next-gen CO2 heat pump system. They're all kind of special and unique in different ways, and so it's been wonderful to see these projects evolve over the last year, and that's about how long the design budget period lasted. All right, and then just a couple more really exciting TENS projects. So we have 2 congressionally directed projects, which basically means Congress puts in our budget, DOE is giving X amount of money to this specific awardee or this specific location. One of these is in St. Paul, Minnesota, the Como Zoo and Conservatory. So they are looking to use GHPs for their primates building. Again, really exciting and interesting application for a zoo. Xcel Energy, part of this project, and this is, again, looking to reduce emissions and will also should reduce costs, operating costs associated with the heating and cooling for the primates building. And this zoo is hoping to, after they finish the primate building project, actually invest nearly $8 million to install geothermal in both the visitor center and the main zoo building. So starting with primates and then kind of going out from there. And then another one in the city of Rochester, Minnesota. This one is focused on a Twin Cities-based, this is using the Twin Cities-based startup heat pump technology that was developed at the University of Minnesota. And this is a shallower system that is using aquifers. So again, a little bit distinctive from the rest of the projects that we've looked at. Fewer, shallower wells, replacing of steam line, which I should have mentioned for the previous slide on the zoo, also replacing a steam system. And again, clearly reducing operational costs for these public buildings that are shown on y'all's right here. Yes, and then hopefully being able to add on additional renewable components in the future, so such as if they wanted to add solar panels, if they wanted to add energy storage, leaving the flexibility for that in their design, which I think is really exciting. Okay, so now I'm going to enter the last phase of my talk and talk a bit about how we're partnering with other parts of DOE. This first one is actually not something that we're partnering on. This is purely from the Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations. But it is a $400 million funding opportunity that is open now for applications. And so I wanted to make sure to highlight it for everybody in this conference. So this is broader than geothermal, right? This is why it's not in the GTO portfolio. But Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations, as the name suggests, has a mandate to look at renewable energy, clean energy demonstrations across a very broad technology portfolio. And in particular, they have this new funding opportunity that is focusing on energy improvements for rural and remote areas. So if you all are close to or are working with communities that have 10,000 or fewer people, I would really encourage you to look at this, this funding opportunity. Concept papers are due, which is again a smaller application set than the full application, is due in February. I would not sleep on this though. I imagine that there's a lot of language to go through, as there usually is in FOAs. So I'd encourage everybody to take a look now and consider applying. Geothermal heating and cooling is specifically called out in this FOA as something that is allowable and included in the energy improvements that they're considering. So again, a specific call out for this industry as part of this $400 million currently open funding opportunity. All right. Next, I'm going to talk about an unfortunately closed funding opportunity, but I know that there's been a lot of interest and engagement with the Geothermal Technologies Office and how we work closely with the Buildings Technologies Office, which is a different office right within DOE. And for those that want to keep track, the Building Technologies Office is where the air source heat pump focused technology sits, and then obviously ground source heat pump or geothermal heat pump technology sits within the Geothermal Technologies Office. But this is a funding opportunity that we worked together on. So this was led by the Building Technologies Office, and GTO is co-funding this funding opportunity with several other tech offices. And it's looking at various connected communities, what we call grid edge applications. So looking at distributed energy resources, looking at charging infrastructure, looking at thermal energy networks, looking at various pieces and parts of technology that are not actually grid, but how they are operated will impact the grid, will impact peaking, will impact energy use in a community. And so this funding opportunity specifically had a thermal energy networks topic. And so I hope that, that some folks were able to put in for this. There are applications under review now. And I'm excited, hopefully the next time I see y'all, to announce the selections under this Connected Communities funding opportunity. All right, and then a couple other things that fall sort of under Better Buildings and the Building Technologies Office. I promised some resources right at the beginning. I promise as we close out, we're getting to some resources even outside of GTO. So Better Buildings and ASHRAE work together to create a Decarbonizing Thermal Systems How-To Guide, which came out earlier this year. QR code, if anybody wants to go ahead and link to it right now. But essentially, it's sort of if you're new to heat pumps, which I know some of y'all are, because I've been talking to everybody at the conference, and there's a lot of folks that said, I'm new to geothermal, and I'm new to geothermal heat pumps. It's kind of a how-to guide on how to think about thermal systems, how to think about what kind of heat pump might work for you, in the broader Better Buildings and building decarbonization space. So I will be clear, this does not focus only on geothermal technologies, but it's a really great starter for folks who are thinking about how to manage their thermal assets. And then one more shout out for the DOE Better Buildings portfolio. We did launch, I believe it was last year, the Better Climate Challenge. And as part of the Better Climate Challenge, which involves Better Buildings partners all working together in peer groups, there are organizations that are committing to a 50% reduction in emissions in 10 years. So I know we have a lot of folks here focused on building decarb and willing to commit to building decarb, or working with partners who are committed to building decarb. So I encourage you to bring this resource to them. Essentially, if you join the Better Climate Challenge, you get put in a peer group where then folks can talk to each other, solution together, right? Learn from each other's systems and learn as you all move forward together. And I believe, it says on here that they'll run for 3 to 6 months once these different working groups are started up. So again, if you have clients, if you have organizations that you work with that you think might want to be part of the Better Climate Challenge and get access to all of the resources and peer support that comes with that, I encourage you all to check this out as well. Pashoo, and I think with that, I'm pretty wrapped. I'm going to leave this slide up because I want to make sure that y'all have a link to our website. If anyone's interested in being a merit reviewer, please check out the website. There's the opportunity to do that, as well as a judge, as I mentioned earlier. And then we have a drill down, right? So it's funny because I know who has the drill down, because as I was walking around today talking about the prize and the excitement around the prize, a couple people were like, yeah, I already know, I read the drill down. Because it came out last week. That was when it kind of got debuted for the very first time, was in our monthly newsletter last week. So some folks were already in the know. So if you want to be in the know, if you want to be that cool person and know what's going on in DOE's Geothermal Technologies Office, please sign up for the drill down, and you'll get all of the latest as we keep going forward. And so with that, I'm going to stop and take questions until we're out of questions or until we hit happy hour. Neither one. Thank you, everyone.
State your name and ask.
My name is Mike Dallas, EnergyWise. With regard to the energy improvements in rural or remote areas, 2 questions. One, what is defined as rural? And the second is, because it's a federally funded program, do you have to do this prevailing wage?
Sorry, are you referencing this one?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the definition of rural will be in the funding opportunity. I don't have that off the top of my head, but it will be defined in there. Again, all that we have on the slide is 10,000 people or less. And then, I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Because it's a federally funded project, you have to use prevailing wage.
Prevailing wage.
Yeah, those actually, whether or not you need a prevailing wage will be included in the funding opportunity as well, in the details. This is why they're like 250 pages, everyone, because everything's in there. So yeah, I'll have to refer to you to the funding opportunity. Other questions? I was promised heckling.
I can't heckle, you're doing such a good job. So back actually to that same opportunity, the rural communities. So I'm super new to the idea of accessing any of the funds from DOE. Who do you typically see apply for something like this, especially for this type of a prize or award?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, the risk of sounding like a broken record, there will be a section actually in the funding opportunity that says like what entities can apply if it is limited. A lot of times, honestly, they're not. I will disclose that funding opportunities can be a lot of time. They're very time intensive. They're very resource intensive. Folks who've been following us for a little while know that we struggled a lot with this with the community geothermal FOA because we wanted to reduce the amount of requirements in the application as much as possible to make it more accessible for communities to apply and to be part of applications. So I would say that if you are not an organization that has the resources to put together, detailed plans and budgets to submit and resumes to submit and all of the things that are listed in the FOA, then I would encourage you to partner with an organization that does have those resources. I also will add that a lot of funding opportunities are starting to put out a quick guide. I didn't see one immediately for this, but I will double check, that has that really fast, like, who can apply, what do we mean, by rural, like all of the basics. And I'm actually really excited to say that we did that for community geothermal, and now that's being copied throughout the department as a best practice for different FOAs. So hopefully they have one. But yeah, it is, I guess I will admit, and that's partly why I'm encouraging folks, even though it's concept papers due in late February, if you are interested, to go ahead and check it out now, because yeah, it can take several months to put together a meaningful application. And looking to peers who've put in 4 applications before to learn from them as well, and best practices. Courtney is another good one.
Okay, quick question. What define rural? I've got a project in Mount Vernon, city of Mount Vernon. Is that rural enough for this?
Y'all want to do it together as a group? We'll just Google it right now on the funding opportunity. And because again, I know everyone wants to know what rural means. Other than 10,000 people or fewer, I don't have additional details on this slide. And to be clear, this isn't a Geothermal Technologies Office funding opportunity. So I'm not in the weeds here. But I don't know, is this thing connected to the internet? If I click on this, will it go? What? Nice. Hold on, we're going to do it live. Watch me go. All right, download the full funding opportunity. Hold on. I'm going to download somebody to this computer. Am I going to get in trouble for that? Don't break it? That's probably fine. All right, then you just go, when this big scare, by the way, this is actually a really great live tutorial. When a really scary page like this pops up where you're like, what is all of this stuff? Just scroll down till you find the documents area. Oh gosh, now I lost it. Here you go, the documents area, and then go to where it says no FO. This is my fault, we used to call them FOAs. New fiscal year, we've changed to no FO, which is notice of funding opportunity. Here we go. We're gonna, basic information and eligibility. Y'all, we're doing this live. Watch us go. All right. Basic information. All right, let's go down. Let's see, does anybody see a rural definition here? I'm gonna just leave this up for a second though, because the goals I think are pretty important. Measurable and sustained benefits to people who live in an area. Community geothermal /TENS does that. So do GHPs. Effective rural remote energy system approaches. Check. Build clean energy knowledge, experience, capacity. Maybe this is what I should do next. We should do a FOA workshop for the next one. Just kidding, no one would come to that. All right, project funding. So in case anyone was wondering what projects, $400 million altogether, how much could you get for an individual award? There it is, $2 million to $50 million. All right, requirements. There's several categories. So you would want to look through and see what kind of project which category you would fall in. And eligibility. Okay, all right. The bipartisan infrastructure law defines rural remote areas as city, town, or unincorporated areas as a population of not more than 10,000 inhabitants. Applicants must identify at least one area in the United States with a population of not more than 10,000, according to the 2020 Census Bureau, that will benefit from the proposal. There you go. That's apparently the definition of rural. We got there. Hold on, just real quick while we're here. Oh, nope, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to Control F. Geothermal. Here we go. Priority technologies and project types. including geothermal heating and cooling and power generation, just in case anybody didn't believe me that it was on there. All right, well, thanks everybody for coming to my FOA short course. Do we have other questions before we finish? Everyone's ready for happy hour? I really appreciate your time at the end of the day, everyone. Have a good day.